Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to round 27 coverage of the Zurich 1953 Candidates Tournament. So from round 27, I selected the game between Efim Geller with the white pieces and Mark Taimanov with the black pieces. Let's get to it. Geller kicks off with e4. Taimanov replies e5, and we get a Ruy Lopez, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5. And now a surprise from Taimanov. Taimanov was a very creative player and opening theoretician, so he was probably trying out some new opening idea in this game. So let's take a look at it. It's not a good one, I'll tell you that. Bishop b4. What Bronstein has to say about this is that, well, in the Italian game, White is willing to sacrifice a pawn just to lure the bishop to this square. That pawn to b4 move is the Evans gambit, and White gladly sacrifices that pawn just to get the bishop to the square where it can be kicked with the move c3 and then build up a big center. So not a great idea, but interesting, and it gets your opponent out of book, I guess. Anyway, Geller didn't kick the bishop right away with c3. He castled first, and knight ge7 was played. And now he played the move c3, kicking the bishop back. Goes back to a5. And a lot of times in the Evans gambit, the idea is to follow up with d4, build up a big center. And that certainly could be played here. But in this position, Geller spotted a way to win a pawn, and he decided to go for that. So anyway, I'll go ahead and play it. He took the knight off, and then he kicked the bishop with b4. The bishop drops back, and then he kicks the knight with b5. So this tactic, I call this the double pawn push. You push here with tempo, and then you push here. So the pawn gets like a free move in there. And now this knight has to move, and that leaves the e-pawn undefended. So it clearly does win a pawn. But, well, there's a cost to winning this pawn. Let's see. Black goes in castles, and then we'll take a look at this position. You'll see that Black has, in a way, a lead in development, although this is not the most inspiring piece over here on the rim of the board. But he does have one more piece out. And White's pawns, he has an extra pawn, but his pawns are looking a bit scattered. So this is not at all a clear position. There's an edge to White in this position, but just a slight edge. It's not like he's a full pawn up. So interesting experiment. Now Geller plays d4, builds up that big center, and Taimanov immediately goes to undermine the center with d5. What Bronstein recommends here, actually both these plans are equally good. I'll just show this as a different idea, is the move queen to e8, with the idea that well, after a natural move like, say, rook e1 from White, playing d6 and kicking the knight away, getting this pesky knight away from his king side and diminishing any attacking ideas that White might have. So it's just a different way to play, and yeah, I think I kind of like this way. I don't like it when my opponent's minor pieces are hanging around my king side. That can be very dangerous. But Taimanov played d5 here, which is also a fine way to play, just going after the center, leaving the knight here for a while. And now this will be a really good time for Geller to throw in the move knight d2, just continuing to develop, defending this pawn. If the pawn is taken, he gets another knight here in the center, and he has ideas of a kingside attack, so this knight d2 move right here would be something that's very fitting. But he has a different way, a different idea of how to pursue the attack. So Geller goes with the move bishop a3, kicking the rook. The rook goes to e8, and then he comes out with queen h5. So just going all out for the attack. So you can see he was in kind of an aggressive mood in this game. First of all, he throws his b-pawn forward just to win a central pawn, and now he's getting his queen out early without even having developed his queenside knight. So, well, there's different ways to meet this threat. Let's see. I think Taimanov selects the best move here. He just plays f6 to kick the knight away. I guess I just wanted to mention it was also possible to play bishop e6 and just kind of defend things. And black should be able to hold this position. It's not a big problem. The attack is really not well founded. So f6, kicking the knight. This kind of forces a crisis. Geller doesn't really want to retreat the knight. And so this is his idea. He plays f4, supporting the knight, and he's willing to sacrifice the knight in order to get this mass of pawns in the center and an open file against the king. Now this attack, it turns out, is completely unsound. In fact, what Bronstein writes about it is that the course of the game will show that this move loses or ought to lose by force. So definitely a bad move, but interesting. And I think if you have played a number of over-the-board chess games, or even blitz games, you'll see that a lot of times games can be won this way, just by an attack, even if it's unsound, just by continuing to pose problems for your opponent. And so it's interesting to follow the course of this game, see how this unsound attack can be refuted, or how perhaps it breaks through. So anyway, Taimanov is up for the challenge. He takes the knight. This is the best move. Just grab that knight. And now Geller takes back. He wants to open the f-file, so he takes back with the f-pawn, and he still has this armada of pawns in the center, as well as a bishop. So he's got 3 pieces in the attack. It's not like this is a completely silly attack. There's some dangerous threats here. And to illustrate how much trouble black can get in a hurry is, suppose black plays the move knight to c4. It's a natural kind of move. You want to get the knight back in the game, away from the side of the board, and it also hits the bishop, so it forces some kind of move. But after knight c4, white has queen f7 check, using the rook there. The king has to go to the corner, and now the bishop can come in to f8. And the bishop can't be taken. If rook takes, queen takes, check, queen takes, rook takes is mate. So, and also there's a threat of checkmate just by queen takes g7. In fact, the only way to defend is to give up massive amounts of material here. The chess engine suggests queen g5, bishop takes g7 check, queen takes g7, and queen takes e8 check, and white is just scooping up material. After the queen goes to g8, the rook will come into f8, and the queen will be lost. So anyway, it is a very dangerous attack, and so in this position, after f takes e5, here, let me erase a few of the lines, and now that you know the attacking idea, maybe you can find some defensive moves here. There's more than one move to defend, but this would be a good point at which to pause the video and think about it, see if you can find some defensive ideas for black. Okay, there are some moves that defend. If you thought of g6, I think that defends, although it's not the best move. The best move and the best defense here, which is played by Taimanov, is bishop to e6. It develops a piece, and it controls this f7 square, which you saw was really key to the attack. So Taimanov plays this bishop e6 move, and you have to wonder, where is this attack going at all? Finally, Geller starts to get his knight into the game, which he really should have gotten going first. But really, black is just much better in this position. But his problems are not entirely solved. There's still these pieces looking at his king, and he still has these pieces over here on the queen side, and he has to be careful. In a misstep, and the attack might crash through. Anyway. Let's see. The chess engine is recommending the move queen d7 here as a nice follow-up to try and protect along the 7th rank. Taimanov threw in d takes e4. Yeah, this is just not as good. It actually helps white in a way, bringing the knight forward. But this is still winning for black, and he's trying to simplify things. He spotted a tactic here, and so this is part of the taking the pawn here, bringing the knight forward, is part of a tactic which he plays now. Bishop takes d4 check. So pretty clever idea. If pawn takes bishop, then queen takes bishop check, and the king has to move, and then Taimanov can pick up the knight. So he's traded off one piece. He wins a pawn. I mean, he's traded off one pawn in the center, and this wins a pawn. White is not obliged to take the bishop, and he just moves his king to the side. So it's in White's interest to keep as much force on the board as possible to keep this attack going. And it's in Black's interest to try and trade off pieces, so that's why Taimanov is looking for these tactical ideas. And that was a good one, actually. It was one of the engine's top choices after Queen d7, still keeping quite an advantage for Black. And now he continues with this idea of trying to trade off pieces with the move bishop to d5. It's going to force some action with that knight. Let's see. Another way to play this, which is maybe a little better, is to... This bishop is still hanging here, and the king is no longer in check. So another way to play this is just to move the bishop to e3. The bishop on e3, it's no longer under attack, and also it can potentially retreat back to the h6 square and maybe cover some squares over by the king. So that's a different way to play it. But, well, Taimanov is going for the tried and true approach to defeating an attack, an unsound attack, which is just to trade off all the attacking pieces. And by attacking the knight, well, if Geller grabs the bishop, then he grabs the knight, and he's gotten rid of one more of the attacking units. So Geller goes in for another sacrifice, which is not actually a sacrifice because at the end this bishop is still hanging. But he throws in knight to f6 check. Taimanov takes that, and now he grabs the bishop. So he has lost another of his attacking pieces. He's down to just the queen, the rook, and the bishop are in place. But this rook can get in pretty quickly, and this knight is still out on the edge of the board. So right here, Taimanov plays the move queen d7, defending along the 7th rank, a good move. But Bronstein at this point suggests that maybe now is the time to bring the knight back into the game with knight c4. And knight c4 could be played here, and with a position with only a slight edge to Black. So the attack would still continue. There's no way to completely neutralize this attack, which is one of the things that's kind of interesting. So I started out at the beginning by saying it's an unsound attack, and it is, but here we are many moves later, and the attack is going on. And what can happen over the course of a long-lived attack like this is your opponent gets kind of wound down, worn down, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So anyway, queen f7 is still a good move, defending along the 7th rank. He takes f6. Now the knight is gone, but this pawn in proximity to the king is like an extra attacking piece almost. So the advantage isn't so great. But this queen d7 idea was to bring the queen over here to f7 and force an exchange. Geller doesn't want to retreat the queen. If he just brings the queen back, well, actually he can't go to that square, I'm sorry. He could come here with check, but that doesn't actually accomplish much. The king just goes to the corner, and the attack isn't going anywhere. So instead of retreating, he brings the rook in, and this is the best move. This forces the exchange, which actually Taimanov is going for the exchange. We're now down to just 2 rooks and a bishop, but still Taimanov's knight is not playing here. But he brings his bishop back to f7, blockades this dangerous f-pawn, hits the rook. Rook goes to g5 with check, and then the bishop goes to g6. So now he's blockaded he's blocked the rook, but the bishop is subject to being chased with moves like h4, h5. You do have to be careful here. Let's see, after bishop g6, Geller brings his bishop from the edge of the board in closer to the king, also defending the f-pawn against attacks over here, and restricting the motion of this rook. So this rook has a limited number of squares it can go to. The king goes to f7 now to securely blockade the pawn. Probably Taimanov is thinking that he's still in good shape. And in fact, Black is still better in this position. He's managed to kind of slow things down. But rook to c1, finally Geller's last piece comes into the attack, hitting a loose pawn over here. So rook to c8 defending. And now h4, threatening to cancel that, threatening to chase the bishop away from defense. And right here, h5 is recommended by Bronstein as just a good defensive move. But, well, what Taimanov plays here is actually one of the top engine choices, rook g8, also still defending and keeping that edge for black. And now rook to e5 was played, just maneuvering the rook around, trying to find inroads into the position. b6, holding on to the knight. And maybe preparing another route for the knight to get back into the game. The problem is this rook on c1 is covering these squares that the knight might go to get back into the game. So he's got to figure out a path to get this knight into the game. Okay, g4 was played here, pushing the pawns forward towards the king, and this is starting to look very threatening. But well, bishop to d3 was played, going after this pawn. Now g5, white has this solid pawn formation around the king, and rook g to e8. So right here is the time, with this bishop on d3 here, it's now possible to play knight to c4 because the bishop is defending the knight against the rook. And so right here is the time to play knight c4. After knight c4, black still has quite an edge, and with good play could go on to win the game. But we are on move 30, so remember the time control is at move 40. So there have been 30 moves here that are played under increasing pressure, or intense pressure, the whole way since that early sacrifice. And at this point, Taimanov finally starts to play a few moves that are not the best moves. So rook g to e8 is played here. And now the engine is starting to think, well, maybe there's a justification in the attack. It starts to rate this position as about even. Okay, so Geller continues with rook c3, chasing the bishop away. And now the best retreat for the bishop is to go back to g6. But, well, maybe Taimanov had this in mind, and maybe it's the reason why he didn't play knight to c4. He wanted to reposition the bishop along this diagonal. He plays bishop c4. It helps to keep the rook screened out, too, a little bit. So rook to g3, though. The rook switches over to the g file. Now c6, undermining this pawn here and making some use of the knight on a5 there. Now h5, pushing forward the pawns towards the king. Rook to g8, getting in position to defend. All through this part, the engine is still rating this as about even. So the attack is not necessarily a winning attack at this point. It's just a strong attack that requires careful defense. The bishop goes to b4 here, hitting the knight. Rook c to e8, challenging the rook. And now rook to g to e3, doubling up on the file and just threatening to take some things off here. Actually, I'm not sure who would benefit from that trade. The rook is adequately defended there. Anyway, the chess engine right here says that the way to defend is to play the move rook to e6. Not a very natural looking move. Rook to e6. And now something like bishop takes, pawn takes, and b takes c6. I mean, white does get this dangerous c-pawn, but the rook is here to intercept it. Oh yeah, there's this funny tactic here. This is how the engine is justifying it. Rook takes g5. Looks like that pawn was protected, but in fact this rook is pinned because of the threat along the e file here. So, but that is best actually. Rook takes, and it seems like black is okay here. He's gotten rid of an important g pawn, so that white's pawns are now split. And if we count the material, it's 4 or 5 pawns against 3, so it's 2 pawns against the bishop. And it's not like black has much winning chances here because of the reduced number of pawns, but black should at least be able to hold a draw in this position. So that's starting with this funny move, rook to e6. Instead, Taimanov played the natural move, and also just continuing the general plan, which is often useful in dealing with attacks, just trying to exchange off your opponent's attacking pieces. But now he's losing after rook takes e5, rook takes e5. This armada of pawns, we now have the 3 pawns connected, marching in towards the king, and they're very difficult to defend against. The bishop drops back to e6, again trying to block out the rook from coming into the 7th rank. Now we get this exchange, and white can grab the c-pawn. And the combination of threats here with this advanced c-pawn and these pawns crashing through is it's just too much for black. There's no way he can hold this position anymore. He tries to move rook to d8. Now the c-pawn just goes forward, so he goes to c8. I wonder, and just to back up a second, I didn't look at it. I wonder what would happen if he went immediately to c8, because it seemed like that was kind of a waste of a tempo. If rook to c8 immediately, d5 hits the bishop and defends the pawn. Okay, so that's still winning. Okay, so anyway, he went rook d8 first, putting pressure on this pawn. And then after c7, then he goes here, putting pressure on the c-pawn. But now d5 can be played anyway, kicking the bishop. Bishop goes to g4. Cancel that. Sorry, bishop went to g4. Plays rook e7 check. The king drops back to f8. It has no other squares. Well, f8 or g8 are the only choices. And now g6. These pawns come forward after hg. hg. Taimanov resigned in this position. The march of the pawns is just irresistible. Let's see. The chess engine is giving a line here. I guess I'll go ahead and show it just to show a few more moves. Bishop to f3 check, king to h2, and the bishop takes d5, so he can pick up a pawn here. But now rook to d7 with this threat of checkmate here, actually. And there's no stopping it. Let's see. King e8 is the best reply. But now take the bishop off. And he's got these 2 extra pawns, and let's see, rook takes c7 is playable, but he can't stop these pawns from queening. And in fact, okay, for a second they were showing a mate in 8, I thought, but anyway. So let's back up to the position after h takes g6. It's pretty hopeless already in this position, and Taimanov resigned. So a very nice attacking game from Geller. It's funny how, like I said, it was a completely unsound attack at the beginning, but just by keeping up the pressure and not giving up on his attacking ideas, but continuing to attack and finding ways to get all his pieces into the game, and just a few imprecise moves from Taimanov under time pressure, no doubt, and under pressure of defending against attack for many moves, eventually his defenses crumbled. So hope you guys enjoyed that. At the end of 27 rounds, let's see, on the top boards, Smyslov and Bronstein both took quick draws, and Reshevsky, it was his bye round, so he didn't play this round. So Smyslov now has a formidable lead. He's at 16.5 points. Bronstein and Reshevsky are in second place with 14.5 points each, so full 2 points ahead of them. And then just behind them, a half point back, is Paul Keres. So that's where things stand after 27 rounds. Stay tuned. I'll be back with coverage of round 28. See you then. Bye.